Good morning, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to Israel Doctrines Google Hangout. I'm your host, Carl Albert. You have now entered into the Hangout. And today we have a title up here. And it says, basically asking a question, are there disinformation agents in the conscious community? Now, people, we know the term information is what it is, simply what it is, right? Information. Now, when you put dis, which is a prefix on it, right? Disinformation is something that takes place by people planning to give you false information. So the question is, are those type of individuals in the conscious community? Yes, they are, right? We'll get to some name calling and different stuff later, right? If I choose to do that. Now, misinformation, another prefix before information, is just when someone takes the information and don't truly give it clearly and accurate as they can. So then now you misinform because someone tried to inform you of something, but they left something out. When you disinform, that means someone then gave you a lie, basically. Not even proper information, just a straight up lie to mislead you somewhere. So once again, are there disinformationists in the conscious community? Yes, there are. You know, we got a lot of fledgling groups or people coming up out here. They call themselves dissimulating information. From the liberating aspect of the Black community for us, what we could do to liberate ourselves in the physical sense. For us, financial information, how to take care of your finances, owning land, how to gain more capital, with interest and investments and things of that nature. Some people just totally disinforming the people about those actual things. Some people is misinforming the people, and some people not informing the people at all about how to deal with their economic issues, right? But this is our plight, people. So now that's physical liberation, bust your gun to get free by any means necessary kind of conversation, you know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of disinformation people out there on that ground or that platform. Then you got those that try to deal with spiritual liberation through different theologies that'll liberate someone from white oppressive theology. I guess that's the best way to say it. So, you know, everybody is black, all the prophets is black, or all of the gods, all of the ancestors was so deified and great and kings and, wise people and stuff. Gave words of wisdom and things of this nature. People, that's just disinformation. You know what I'm saying? Not even misinformation on some people parts. It's just straight up disinformation. Once again, it's information that one is trying to use to liberate the people, but how can you liberate the people with a lie? Right? So this is just a question that I'm asking, to get people to think in 2016. Right? Most of my shows and most of my titles has been dealing with liberating factors, right? Things that should help one think and liberate themselves even from this informational paradigm or the disinformational agents that's out here in this so-called conscious community. So like I said, a lot of titles, some things I've been putting up that I done did years back or last year Them not the titles that I'm talking about. But titles like uh, you know, a discourse on Marxism, socialism, black nationalism, Pan-Africanism, right? And the Black Power movement and how its black liberation arms of theology is basically attacked and dealt with. You know, talking about the RBG flag and the history of it due to the song that came out in the 1900s that deal with every race has a flag but the coon, the cry of black revolution or revolutionaries is black power. Once again, dealing with this physical liberation that one seeketh, and we have to deal with the theological stuff, dealing with the spiritual liberation that one seek. You know, as an Israelite or Israel, one is supposed to have power with God and man. So you got to speak on both planes. You know, titles also like you can't debate all day, info activism. So since we talking disinformation or misinformation or just plain old information, we have to understand that the info channels that exist out there. When I say info channels, I'm talking about In the Black Radio, Sinetta TV, The Huddle with Israel Doctrine, uh, Debate Talk for You, Talks of the Titan, Talk with the Titans, TRS, Real Talk Solutions. That's what I believe those acronym, whatever stands for. Who else out there? Do the Knowledge Radio. I forget the other brother radio show. But people, these are info medias. Bring you information about different individuals, different things that's going on in the world and the community, so on and so forth. Right? So the information that one should tend to find over there is information that can help one liberate themselves. But if you get disinformation, most likely, you know what you're going to find yourself doing? Following a lie. And nothing positive can come from following a lie. So, once again, the question is there disinformation agents amongst us? You know, you got to start questioning some of these most popular info networks or shows that give us information. What type of information are they giving us? You know what I'm saying? And they give it to us so vast. It comes at such a rate that it's hard to really discern what it is, study what it is that most people talking about. And they never stay on a constant flow of information to even say, well, we stand down the same path or following that same lane. That's why I myself, for years now, have just been dealing with the Bible to make sure people know that, the information that I deal with from that source is sound, truly understand what it is, seeing that I stay on it, spend a week or so on one topic to deal with the nuances of it. This is called sound doctrine or sound teaching, sound information that one should be able to, check and see. But now they're moving into the black liberation or everything black, all black everything era of Israel doctrine. Saying that Israel is a dark or a black nation by a figurative term, black. You could say a byword, black. But they give you a chance to home in and be a part of the nation of Israel. Well, if I just say Israel, you might say, well, I ain't an Israelite. So I'm not a part of that Bible or that this, that, and the other, which is cool. Which is cool. But you can't say you're not a part of blackness and what goes on in the diaspora of dark melanated black people. If you say you're not a part of that, then you should just get a gun and blow your head off, because you're lying to yourself and you're dying slow, and you're dying, you're going to basically end up dead, being ignorant, dying of lacking the information, I guess. So, people, who's out there? Who's out there? I got a couple people on the line. If you want to participate in the conversation, 312-985-7856 is the number. You know what I'm saying? I've seen a lot of people hit like and stuff, and I know y'all looking for me to carry y'all through the rabbit hole. But truly, people, I plant seeds. I water them a little later. But I'm here to put the thought out there. You know what I'm saying? Not to give you any disinformation, but put the thought out there so the thought can resonate amongst the people and they can study for themselves. And then whatever information I bring later on, then you can try it out, see if it's good or not. But most disinformation agents, right? They don't focus people on the elite powers that be, you know, the dark principalities. They're not shining light on that. You know what I'm saying? Because those are the people that we really need to know about, and those are the people that are oppressing us. If you want to talk about the oppressor and the oppressed, then you got to deal with the elite. You got to deal with the dark principalities in high places. So, you know, a food change, a clothing chain, a market change for us, like a Walmart's, this, that, and the other. That's the type of information that will help the community. You know, those that deal with food and, you know, especially from an Israelite perspective, those that deal with the dietary law. You know, we need to know what chemicals are being used to make some of these foods. Do they got enzymes from pigs, this, that, and the other? Information that's helpful in my community, at least, you know, the Israelite community, things of that nature. Governmental programs and stuff, you know, for us vaccinating the children, this, that, and the other. We need that type of information, people. We need that type of information. Who's buying prisons? Who's financing the prison? Is Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, or even Barack Obama himself, or whoever that has capital to put into the prison houses? You know, do we have judges sitting on the bench that has stake, or a family member has stake in certain prison houses and stuff? This is the type of information that we need to help the community. Being able to read, you know, Metanetta is not, I mean, what it's gonna do? You tell me. But see, this is something that could be employed by disinformation agent, you know. It's to put information out there that's not helpful. It's to deal with just the average people. And it's a tool to be able to say, well, I'm smarter than you. I can read the Metanetta. So therefore, you could disinform me about something or misinform me about something that has to do with that, because I'm lacking information on that. And I care less to spend my time dibbling and dabbling and learning the Metanetta. Same thing with the Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing wrong with learning another tongue or being able to interpret, read, decipher, or whatever you want to say about that. But that's for certain, I guess you could say, ministers, servants, those that will serve in that capacity or in that office, where it comes to translating and speaking to, you know, different people that don't speak the language of the tongue that we speak, being able to do that. So in that case, okay, that's good. That's great information. But that's only for a select group of people amongst the majority of people. So when you make that the main focus, then to me, that's a propaganda scheme to say, well, you can't tell me about Kemet or this and that because you can't speak or decipher metaneta. You can't tell me nothing about the Bible or the doctrine of the God of Israel, the teachings of the God of Israel, because you can't go into the Hebrew. These things become a skill amongst us that some would deem make them superior than others or wiser than others. Once again, greatly used for disinformation, greatly used for misinformation. Now, let's get back to more practical things, more things that we can apply in life, right? So, as I was speaking about the liberating arms of theology that's applied to the Black liberation movement, the movement. Because in the movement, you got to have different fashions and different things. There's a such thing as a minister of information, one that dispenses information. So this is where, their duties of being the people that dispense information comes in, and it's so vital to, the different parts of the movement. So we got to focus in more on what it is that we should be dealing with, right? So those that release notes and stuff on Facebook, those that release video, audio, in whatever shape, form, or fashion, or media that they use to dispense this information, they got to be more accurate in the information. Don't spend 2-3 hours on information and you're not giving things that need to be known. If you do a 5-minute video and it sound, once again, you plant the seed and maybe someone else will come and help you be a part of the research group or whatever it is that's needed to bring that information, documentation and stuff to the community. So we won't be in a state of disinformation or misinformation. You see what I'm saying? We got to start holding these ministers of information or those that are dispensing the information to a higher level people. Like I said, one of the biggest things that I'm attacking right now and dealing with is Pan-Africanism, which y'all might know that I'm gonna be doing a show on that tonight, dealing with its Christian roots and its counterintelligent branches. Because the thing is, people, once again, no one is trying to deal with modern history. When I say modern history, I'm talking about like in the last 100 to 200 years. Most definitely 100, because we can relate more and it's more closer to us, and it may be our great-great-grandparent legacy from the time they was born to our time, and the things that they endured and could inform us about. See, we talking information here. The older the person are, the more information they hold about different things. They could tell you, if you got 100-year-old elder around, they could tell you when they first looked at the TV. Like we could tell the children of today when we first dealt with the Atari, right? They could read about it and say, yeah, man, I heard that the first video game, which probably wasn't the Atari, but in mass production was the Atari. And the #1 game at the time was Pac-Man. They read about it. We lived that, Most definitely the Nintendo area where Mario was the game you got with it, and Duck Hunt. You know what I'm saying? And you stayed up and played Mario and you learned how to rank, hit the turtle and get unlimited men. Then you went on to play the game and went through the maze and stuff. See, we lived it. So the older you are, the more you can go back into history and historical moments and get oral, you know what I'm saying, information from the elders. You can document this information. You can pit it with other information, documentations for us, newspaper articles and things of that nature. And you dealing with things that we should comprehend, understand, and be dealing with now. Seeing that slavery was the biggest form of oppression to ever hit us as a people. Jim Crow was a big thing. The so-called Emancipation Proclamation, the Plessy versus Ferguson or whatever. These different court cases that separated us or segregated us, and those that segregated us, so on and so forth. You know, this information is what we need, people, because this is the information that people like myself lack growing up. And even though those things was probably maybe 30 years before me, it wasn't like the information was flowing through the community. You had your John Henry Clark, your Dr. Benz, your Ada Vance Sertima. You had your, George Jim James and your James Combs and your, how many names can I come up with? You just had different people disseminating information. When I say James Combs, that's due to the fact that he dealt with Black liberation and Black theology. Then later on, Black liberation theology. He talked about the cross and the hanging tree. He talked about things from a Christian perspective. So I guess you could say you're Elijah Muhammad and stuff too, because he, your message to the Black man. And then you got Noble Jew Ali with all his different documentations and stuff, and Holy Quran, Circle 7, and things of that nature. So we got people dispensing information and stuff that's going back to the theological arms of the movement, right? So like I said, I really don't want to stay on this long, people, because tonight is the night where we're going to talk about a lot of these things in a certain perspective, due to the fact that, let's just be reasonable about it, right? When we were in slavery, we didn't get to read books. 9 out of 10, they would let us get a puppet preacher. But yet at the same time, for him to be a puppet preacher, he had to have this book called the Bible, right? And due to the fact he had this book, if one learned how to read it, then the information that they getting directly from the book was vital. Number one, they learned how to read. They learned the wording, you know what I'm saying? They even learned how to speak the Queen English or whatever from the book. So it gave people the opportunity to learn and be educated. And it gave the person with the ability to use the phonics and things that they done learned now to teach others how to read, write, and assimilate in the, intellectual, I guess you could say, feel or whatever. So this is our history. Like I said, it ain't like when the slaves first started reading, they picked up a Holy Quran or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They didn't pick up no Torah or Tanakh or nothing, and read it in Hebrew or nothing like that. So the first means of information that we received in a written form was the Bible. That's just it. and people got educated. They became intellectuals based up on the biblical text. They could learn how to argue, debate, reason out of that text. So what happened is our greatest intellectuals, our greatest means of, different movements that came along from the abolition, from the African perspective, Negro perspective, then later on Black perspective, you know, was pretty much based up on the biblical text. When you get to the Black perspective, then it gets a little fuzzy. And that's where you got to do your historical, get your historical information, data about it. And this is what people in the community is not doing. They're not focusing on that information there. It's like a dead spot. You driving and you can't see in that spot, something can come out of it and hit you. Or you walking around a corner and you're not walking too far out so you can, go around and look, but you walking so close, somebody just stick their hand out and knock you out, punch you, because you don't see it coming. That dead spot. So in our history, and the children that's growing up today, and like I say, even those of my generation, the information wasn't pushed. The civil rights era was right there before us, but Black History Month or Negro History Month, then Black History Month didn't exist. People didn't push certain things. Academic, we didn't have, as the John Henry Clarks and different people, was arguing and debating during that time, which still was a blind spot to me, a young boy growing up in Arkansas. In New York, okay, you got your Reggies and Shaka Utmost and different people that was a part of those different organizations that was going on up there. Leonard Jeffries and, this and that, the Harlem Renaissance thing. You had people pushing academic demion people and curriculum, trying to come up with curriculum and different stuff to teach people. But this, once again, take us back to the disinformation or misinformation that the people receive from these so-called master teachers, scholars and stuff that need to be deciphered, looked at, and dealt with today. But if you keep taking us to Egypt, you hear these same people say I ain't gonna say Afro, but it was Afrocentric and also African centered. Both of those terms work. Once again, maybe misinformation, maybe disinformation. Both of those terms out there, and you should be informed on both of them. So if you don't like it, I would say something smart, but I'm gonna try to stay humble, right? So this stuff need to be vetted, people. This stuff need to be dealt with. You know what I'm saying? You got so-called young scholars of the day, and once again, they're not African centered. They're Egypt centered, or they got certain other areas on that continent called Africa that they focus on. You would say an Israelite, quote unquote Hebrew Israelite. Disclaimer, I'm not one of them. I claim to be an Israelite. The Hebrew Israelites, I believe they're a fashion of disinformation. They set up to give us or give the people disinformation, or to be a distraction to certain information. Seeing that a lot of people have used them as a great propaganda tool to cause hate, animosity, whatever, about the Bible. You know what I'm saying? There's been individuals, groups, and so on and so forth that caused that paradigm to be such a disdain in the community. that you can't really even talk about the Bible and stuff, which believe me, I know. That's why I'm on my, you know, black stuff now. You know what I'm saying? Still gonna bring it from a biblical perspective because as I denote in the title of tonight's show, you know what I'm saying, Christianity dominated the intellectual capacity of our people for so long. And it built a certain type of individual in the community that did certain things and acted a certain way. And then you see when the counterintelligence, not really saying the government or whatever, but to counter their intelligence and their information to say, like, I know more than them, then we see the noble Jew Ali's come in with the Moors and, you know, Islam. Then we see the Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad come in with the Nation of Islam and, you know, Islamic teachings and doctrines. This is another Abrahamic faith, which gave it a good in the community because it wasn't too different than Christianity in the Abrahamic faith or book that preceded it. The Bible, then people went to the Quran, right? But that was the counter what was going on in the Bible, seeing that these gentlemen from the Garveys, I just say Garvey, so and so on up, well back from Garvey back was dealing with just exclusively the Bible. Then now somebody, in which Farad Muhammad was stated to be a white man, some white man, right? Also black man, Noble Jew Ali, which are the two main people to bring that Islamic paradigm in, brought the Quran in, and then start changing stuff and messing with stuff and using that as a base of intelligence now, where you got the 5%ers that bounced off of that and so on and so forth. Now we see these individuals and their organizations in Islam countering Christianity. And you see these people saying Christianity is a white boy's religion, forced up on us in slavery, so on and so forth, which is disinformation or misinformation, which bring us up to the Bens and the Clarks and the different people in different periods, where then they was even trying to tell us where Africa all the way to Egypt. Then now you got Egyptology or so-called Afrocentric mindset, which is really a Egypt mindset, a Egypt-centered mindset. So you see now why I'm having this conversation, most definitely before the night, because we got different individuals that's gonna come. Chris Wilson, formerly or still of the Amin-Ra squad. I don't know his status with the squad, but he gonna come through tonight. We got Pit Boss. He gonna come through tonight. We got Niyami. He gonna come through tonight. Sharp Spear. He gonna come through tonight. Knowledge said he gonna be here tonight. He probably gonna be a little late, but he plan on coming through. You gonna have Wah, me myself. You know, I'm gonna more try to make sure that, you know, I got the questions and the thing, and make sure people stay on track, because the title is kind of funny. You know, we're gonna deal with the Christian roots and what our great, you know, dealt with, however far back them greats need to go, dealt with in the information and the intelligence, plethora of intelligence or information that they was getting. I can't even use it. I don't know what term I want to use. That they were ciphering off of, you know what I'm saying, gleaming off of. Like I said, a lot of it had to do with the Bible. You know, this was the moral compass that was used in the community. This was everything, how to govern. You know, the Bible deal with a lot. Finances, when they had a church and created a church before the 501c3 and all of that, even with that, the church, which is the people, not the building, because the building is the church building, the people's building. This is where information and the way you use words and terminology come in too. So you got the church, which is the people in the building. So the church building was the place for politics, well, for the church to go and deal with whatever functions need to be dealt with. And it was dealing with the people. So when you say power to the people or to the church, and then they go in the building and they deal with their different power base, you know what I'm saying? That was a place where people had money due to the fact that people brought their tithing in. That's a place where people could go get food. That's a place where people could have shelter. Community center, social center. That's what the church was, right? So once again, from the church, the people, to Islam, I don't know what you call them people. You know what I'm saying? I'm ignorant of it to a degree. You know what I'm saying? Nothing I really wanted to study. Nothing I really wanted to get deep into. Deepest I wanted to get into Islam was Malcolm X. As deep as I go with the Nation of Islam. More Science Temple, I dibbled and dabbled a little bit when I was going to debate Lord Abba. And there's some things in there that's very questionable also, you know. So, like I said, people, country boy growing up, disinformation, misinformation was all out there. If it weren't for growing up in Chicago, seeing the Harold Washington and the, you know, the remnant of the Black Panthers and all that different stuff that was transpiring up there, you know, with the lunch programs, even other different gangs and stuff that came up in the Chicago area, which changed into, you know, what they are today. If it weren't for that, and even, you know, running into the Israel of God, then there's certain things that I wouldn't even be dealing with today and trying to comprehend or deal with, because I'm a firm believer it's best not to deal with none of the information until the time is right and you want to deal with it. Then you got to choose what portion of the information you want to deal with, because there's so many disinformation agents and networks out here that you can be distracted from off the true mission of liberating yourself and others. Liberating yourselves and others. You know what I'm saying? Because that is what it should be about. Basic biblical principle. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Basic biblical principle from the beginning, right? Which if you go to 1 John 3, you will see this is the message we should have heard from the beginning. Love thy brother, right? Love thy sister. But we saying brother because of the Cain and Abel situation. And what did he ask God? He said, my brother's keeper. Do I supposed to look out for this Negro? What's the question? Bring it up to modern terms, right? Do I supposed to look out for this Negro? Should I care about this Negro? And we know the answer is no, because his blood cried out. Cain spilt his own brother's blood. And if it was some other people around, due to the fact that he hated them, if someone else spilt his blood, he probably would have said, hey, and what? I ain't like him anyway. He thought he was a goody two shoes and trying to put up them good offerings and stuff, blah, 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 trying to win favor. So who cares if he dead and somebody killed him? So this is the mindset that's going on in the community, people. These are the things that we need to deal with. If we're not trying to be our brothers' keepers, sisters' keepers, you know what I'm saying, then what are we here for? We supposed to be protecting, and a lot of y'all say this, but y'all act like y'all ignorant of the fact. We supposed to be protecting the Black family. And That's one thing that came out of the Black Power movement, when people was walking around with their dashikis and afros and this and that and everything. It was what's happening, brother? What's happening, sister? How you doing? Not that lady, not that dog, female dog, not that this and that. It was brothers and sisters, and it was more of a family mentality. You know, you find that in the church today, depending on what church you go to. Um, or should I say church building, to be precise. But you find it in the church, the people, where people are saying brothers and sisters in God. You know what I'm saying? They got this, they consider themselves to have the same father. So how you doing, brother? How you doing, sister? Peace today, sister. Peace, brother, this and that. Family. So until you start seeing everybody as your brother and sister again, and being able to put that, you know, resurrect that, you know, rebirth that in the community, you know what I'm saying, or the neighborhood, put neighbor back in the hood. Maybe you will love your neighbor more and not just the hood, because the hood produces a certain thing, a certain vibe, a certain spirit. The hood has been affected with drug dealing and all the different elements that we see today. You know, the police state is in the hood because they got to police the hood, where no one is really acting neighborly with each other. So people, I don't want to talk long. I didn't talk too long. I done put in almost an hour. So join us tonight. If you want to listen in and you out and about, call 312-985-7856. That's the communal, you know, phone line. You know, that's where you can call in, listen to any broadcast, anything, because like now I got some sisters on the line. But you can listen in. It's a Skype number. You can listen in. You can also talk and be heard for the from the panel. The panel will be able to hear you speaking through the Skype, and they can answer any questions or whatever when the Q&A session opens up. And to then, if you call in, mute your mic, you know what I'm saying, listen in. When the Q&A open up, then you can ask questions about the information that was spoken on, the information that was spoken on in the panel. You know what I'm saying? So we won't get no disinformationists, disinformation agents coming through trying to throw the conversation, you know, to the left or even to the right or backwards. You know what I'm saying? We want to move forward with the conversation and the information that's being dispersed. And if it's wrong information or something, and you did your, you know, Wikipedia, which is a disinformational page to a degree, it does a good job of giving you sources and stuff, but you have people that can always get on there and edit the information. So it ain't always the best source. It's the best source to lead you to other sources. I give it that. But Chris, what's up? What's up, bro?
Peace. How's it going here, your doctor?
Oh man, it's good, man. Just a morning, sitting up here talking about what we're gonna be talking about tonight. You know, Pan-Africanism, Christian roots, and its counterintelligent branches. You know, as I was explaining to the people, I don't know if you heard it or you just waking up and chiming in to see what's going on, to be informed about what's going on. You know, Islam came in and it countered Christianity. It was a total, you know, counter operation, however you look at it. And then after that, you know, the Egyptologist movement came through, which eventually became the Kemetic and Nile Valley movement, and how it went against Islam and Christianity. So we got people bringing information in, but it's not adding on to what was there, but it's actually trying to crush it or counter it. So, you know, I'm gonna be monitoring the conversation tonight and kind of dictating the flow, and hopefully everybody, you know, will spoken on the situation, that meaning they can inform us on different things. I know other people, when you got a panel, when you got different individuals, with information, then that makes for a better pot of gumbo, So, what's up with you, man? Where you been? Where you been? Where you been? Talk to the people a little bit, man.
Oh man, I'm just getting back around to dealing with some of these topics. Um, yeah, I saw the title of your show, and it's really I've dealt with things like that before, disinformation, things like that, and I like to I like to bring it back to the idea of the boule, you know. And a lot of times, that's a hard topic to deal with. All of these are hard topics to deal with because it's hard to not try to, try not to bring too much of the private into the public. But the truth is, there are people that are in the so-called conscious community or Black conscious movement in 2016 that have private interests that conflict with the public interests of the people that they're supposed to be advocating for. So, the disinformation, but like you said, you have certain groups that want to, counter-oppose other groups, whether it be religion or, how they do things, well, what you call yourself. Some people don't want to call themselves Black, etc. But, the disinformation part, I've dealt with that. And, like I said, at the end of the day, these people's private interests conflict with the public interests. I mean, they might have good intentions. When John Henry Clark was saying a lot of things he was saying, he didn't have in mind all the great things the Black churches have done and Black Muslims and things of that nature. He was expressing something from a field of private interest, which had to do with religion and his conflict of interest with the public. So,
yeah. So now,
information agents in the conscious community, I definitely agree.
So you mentioned the boule. Speak on that a little bit. A lot of people may not know who the boule is. I kind of know because of Steve Coakley, a great pioneer of information. This brother, when he brought information, he brought data information. He brought, documentation. He brought what was needed to most definitely let you know what it was he was talking about. But if you could speak on it a little bit, the boule.
Right. The boule, you have the main boule. Because a lot of people get it confused. Sometimes I use boule as a general term, but the actual boule society, that would be more of a academic fraternal type thing, where of African American elitism. Okay, so that's what a lot of people would normally envision when you talk about the boule. But the word boule in general is just a Greek term that describes people, the types of people that are influenced by governors, senators, and people in politics to govern the affairs of the citizens.
So who were the first boule? Where did they come from? What was they plot in life, I guess? Where did they come from? Where did it started from? Can you give us a little introduction to the historical branch or people we know today as the boule?
Right. dealing with Boule historically, like I said, you have the main Boule dealing with blacks or African Americans. You have the Boule, which is pretty much like the collective. Uh, you'll look at it, from you could look at it from like a really militant pro-black point of view, and you could look at the Boule as Boule are basically people who are employed to keep the status quo in the black community. That's what that's pretty much what a lot of people would
So
sum it up as.
was this a fraternal order? Was this a Mason order? Was this a Greek order? Uh, what type of order was this? What type of people, once again, was this birthed out of?
Well,
Because
yeah, you had the fraternal. You actually had like a fraternal order of Boule, but then you also have a Boule element, which is just black elitism, and you could find that in a lot of other fraternal orders, masonry, Masons. You could get into like collegiate things with some of these fraternities, but yeah, you actually had like a Boule fraternity, but then you also had a Boule circle, in which, for example, you had the thing with Donald Trump sitting down with the black pastors and things like that.
there you
And
go. Bring it to modern
you know,
times. Bring it to modern times so the people can feel it. The black pastor sat down with Donald Trump.
right, right, okay, that's a good example. We could start with that. You had Donald Trump with the meeting with the black pastors, right? So you would say that, out of all so many hundreds of years in America, um, we're still dealing with issues like this. Like, let me go talk to these guys, and maybe everything with black folks would be okay because I go talk to these preachers who, they have a clout in the community, and a lot of it is backed by a Boule type mentality. The inner circle of black folks that the white elite can go to, and basically get them to enforce ideas and certain things that happen in the black community.
But let's be more specific now, because you're saying black, and we know that's a figurative language.
Right.
But really,
Right,
these societies are Greek in nature, right? When you talk about, your fraternities, your alphas, your betas, your, so on and so forth. This is Greek societies, right?
Greek, it's Greek. Just like dealing with academics, because part of the elitism came from education. You had somebody like W.E.B. Du Bois who, these guys were going to Harvard and stuff like that during a time where you were wondering, like, the average so-called black person could barely even read a sentence. You had some black men going to Harvard and things like that. So, it was an elitist idea in an academic sense. So, yeah, the Boule is a fraternity, and that's where a lot of it developed from the Greek thought and things like that. And their logo is actually that little Greek, what is it, like a griffin, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a griffin, which is a keeper of secrets.
Right. Like we got, like there's some things we need to know, but they know it, but they won't share it with us. That's what it appears to be, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I tell people, this 2016, the new calendar year, people, it's up on us. And no matter how much you want to say, well, new year don't start until spring and this and that, you writing 2016 down on your documentation. Today is the 3rd of January 2016. That's just it. So, and anything that we do is being stamped with that date and time on it. So it is what it is. I don't fight the calendar New Year thing. I don't, go around saying Happy New Year stuff like that because I know better. I'm in the know. But at the same time, you have to identify with what's going on. Once again, power with God and man. So yeah, so we got another caller. Peace, how you doing, brother Ishmael?
Peace, brother Kyle. How you doing this Sunday, brother?
I'm good. First day of the week, getting it in.
No doubt, nothing wrong with that. I'm a Rock Squad up.
That's right.
Peace. What's up, Ishmael? I'm a Rock Squad up. Peace to you, family. How you doing?
Yeah, we got Chris on the line, brother Chris.
Doing all right, man? Peace to you, brother Chris. How you doing, family? Doing outstanding, man. It's good to hear from you again. Yes, sir. Always, of course. Yeah, always good to hear from you.
Yeah, so today's topic, Ishmael, I know you probably seen it, disinformation agents in the conscious community. I know you've been around this community for a long time. You want to chime in on that? You got some words?
Well, I know it's an important topic like you were just dealing with. You're dealing with the boule. The boule was really kind of unveiled within our community by my teacher, Brother Steve Coakley. He kind of, opened our community's eyes to what was going on with that, as opposed to it being a secret cabal or this esoteric group. They were doing a lot of dirt behind the scenes, and by Steve Coakley doing that, he put his life in danger many times on dealing with that particular topic.
Yeah, a lot of prominent people. Ron Brown, that people that came up dead and stuff because they was holding information and could have been a danger to those that entrusted them with the information. Yeah, Steve did a lot of work. I once I tapped into that brother work, I couldn't do nothing but respect it. And I think we need more Steve Coakleys out here because my Twitter tag is Black Intel. We need intel people. If we got people, planning counterintelligent actions towards us, we got to be able to counter their intelligence or their intel. So, we just, like I said earlier in the show, we got to get to dealing with things that is more prudent to us today, more concrete things that we can feel, how people was messing with our water, how we got to deal with these corporations and stuff that own the gas and, things like that, because financial oppression, mental oppression is some of the number two things that we face. So you say Steve Coakley was your teacher. Give us a little information about him, because people want, most people don't know about Steve Coakley. What was he from, and what was his title within the community?
Yeah, Steve. He came up through like the Chicago area, being in the city of Chicago, in the 70s and the 80s and things like that. He used to write speeches for some different people. He used to participate and do a lot of fact finding for the Nation of Islam. He did some work working for Minister Farrakhan as far as some of the research. He also worked with the mayor of Chicago. There's a black mayor of Chicago. He worked for him on his staff, on his personal staff.
Harold Washington.
Indeed, he worked for Harold Washington. He was on his staff. After Harold Washington was killed, he moved on, and he was always the whole time doing independent research also. Him being a researcher, he was known for going through various towns and cities. Always very protective as far as being mindful of the enemy and people looking out for him. So he let very few people into his particular circle of who he used to kind of deal with. I had first met him. I had heard of him before, but I had first got the opportunity to meet him in 1981. He would go to various colleges and universities, and one of the universities that he went to was Syracuse University for his lectures. And I got a chance to talk with him after he gave his lecture at Syracuse. and he asked to. He gave me the opportunity to meet with him the day after his lecture in Syracuse, and went over and had coffee. Really sat down and kind of just sit at the feet and learn. And he was one of the people who was always one of the people I could go to for advice as far as research, how to do it, what methodology was. He taught me his methodology. He taught me how to do it. Just realizing that I was just a young man just trying to coming up. Taught me to specialize in one thing. You know, brother Ish, specialize in one thing and master that. As opposed, and that's what you taught me, Ish. Indeed, wise advice from a wise teacher that he gave to me, brother. He gave to me, and I give unto you. And that's what he did with me. In fact, you will hear Steve Coakley's last interview was on the Nikki Love show, and I got a chance to call into the show and just tell him how much I loved him. He was dead very shortly after that. That was his last interview that he ever gave. So he was just a very powerful person, an impact on my life personally. I love him and honor him. On that show, he asked for people like Nikki Love and for myself to continue his work. He was one of the people very instrumental in when I needed advice on how to deal with the Scientology situation. He gave me guidance on that and how to deal with it.
Okay, hold up. Let's slow up because you hit some key stuff that need to be talked about that I would like to hear about. So it's two things here that I heard so far that I would like to deal with. Continuing the work. Who do you see continuing his legacy out here in the community? If you can chime in on that, and then afterwards, let's deal with the Scientology just a little bit, because I don't think people in the community know about that. You also came over to the huddle and did a good show on that, but you know, some people miss information. You know, also
sure.
we need to not miss information, but you know, totally misinformation, like you don't even hear it. So if you could hit who's carrying on this legacy for us dealing with the bigger Bilderbergs and the Boule and the different entities like that, then we'll go to Scientology.
I would probably say, I mean, I guess a person will be known by their works. If you don't really know them, I can't really vouch for anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know people who walk the path and then get weak and I don't hear from them anymore. He had various different students. He influenced many people, many different people, many different ways. One of the brothers that I look at very highly, who continues his work in the spirit of what he did, was Brother Marcus Klein out of Chicago. You know, he focuses on children's education, but he also understands the whole deconstruction and how it works in the spirit of what our teacher taught us to do. So Steve Coakley, you know, so he influenced other people in Webe and Shungi. In Webe, he can break down the Boule stuff. He has that on his actual website. And I can link you up with him on Facebook. He deals very deeply with the Boule and things like that in the proper spirit. And I'm sure he has other, you know, people or people who look to him as guidance and are still on the front line. But there was nobody beside me when I was calling out saying I need some help with this Scientology topic. I didn't hear anybody. So I took it upon myself on the way that I was trained to do. You know what I mean? So I look at my big brother Steve Coakley as an influence. I look at my big brother Khaled as an influence on why I decided to go forward with this topic and to do it the way that I did it.
Hold up now.
I studied.
Yeah. Hold up. What was the gentleman that been on the shows with you? The one that you say his family was caught up in it. That's like your comrade, right?
Indeed, that's my air light. That's my brother. That's Professor Isel.
Okay. Yeah.
Or Professor Denham L.
Yeah. So when you say nobody, I'm like, well, he must have came along later, but I wanted to make sure you give him a shout out too. Meaning, I've been hearing the information people.
I thought you were talking about from the Steve Coakley tree.
Oh, no. Okay.
He's not a student.
Okay.
He's not necessarily per se a student of Steve Coakley as far as talking with him a direct influence. As far as Scientology, he is the foremost expert in dealing with that topic in our community. That's Professor Isel. He knows
Okay,
more
I
about
thought
the
you
inner
was.
workings of that than I.
My bad. I thought you
Understand?
was
So
transitioning from Steve Coakley to Scientology. You know, I figured you was making that nice, smooth, cohesive transition. So my bad.
no doubt. No, it's all right. It's all right. Just compartmentalizing. That's all. So now onto the Scientology topic. Onto the Scientology topic per se. That's where Professor Ourself and me decided to move forward on that particular topic. And me using the scientific methodology that was taught to me by Steve, I was able to deconstruct what was going on. So that's the technical side of how I was able to obtain the information, internalize, and then deliver the information to the public that way. So that was the influence of what Steve had did to me dealing with Scientology, as well as just the lineage of who's continuing his work today.
Now, could you kind of let the people tune in to the information about Scientology in the sense that the conscious community has somewhat of a ties with Scientology, whether they know it or not. And I guess you know what I'm talking about with like the National Black Theater, the things that's been going on 125th with like Polite, dealing with the guy SETI, dealing with the sister out there, this, that, and the other. Because I believe a lot of people still ignorant about the Scientology, especially those that don't do the research. So if you being one of the leaders in that field of information, could you talk to us about the National Black Theater a little bit and how those individuals are around the community, whether we know it or not?
Yeah, but I think that's a very important topic because, again, that's what makes it relevant to the here and now. So what me and Professor ourselves was trying to say was that we were letting people know that in a couple years, we're like an early warning detection system. So we're letting them people know between 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, they're going to be setting up shop in key locations in these particular cities. We mentioned New York City, Harlem. We mentioned Los Angeles, Inglewood. We mentioned Chicago. We mentioned Philadelphia. We mentioned certain key cities. The two first cities that we mentioned was LA and New York. That's exactly what they did. So what we did was we were letting people know that they are putting their instruments in place as this chest in order to put them in the key locations so that they can obtain information, so they can find the most powerful minds that are going on in the city today and convert them over. Using this vehicle called the Nation of Islam in order to do that. We brought this forward before the Nation of Islam admitted that there was a relationship between them and Scientology. After we made our initial call out to our community, Mr. Farrakhan came out and admitted that this was a great relationship taking place. And it's gone verbatim to what we were talking about. Now, the reason why this is done, the reason why we were dealing with this then, and I'll be continuing this on February the 6th. On the weekend of February the 6th, I'll be in Philadelphia. The Amara Square will be a Black and Nobel bookstore. So please, if you're interested on the topic of Scientology, invasion of the Black community, the update, then that's what I'll be dealing with, part of that on that particular weekend. Pseudo slang weekend. The pseudo assassinators are in the house. Amara Squad up. Now, Scientology, what they're doing is they're not only branching off into branches of Islam, they're also, of course, got a foothold in the Black church. There are certain key Black pastors, some of them even in Atlanta, Georgia, who have already turned over part of their congregational doctrine to Scientology. And there's also Scientology being put out in a message encoded way to various different organizational group meetings and also different organizational things that you'll be seeing on television and, of course, in music. So these different kind of coded messages and this coded type of brain-altering message is being put out in the educational system, the music, and in culture. And this is all to reprogram Black people in order to capture their minds and their spirit and to take them over to the great Satan, or one of the great Satans, L. Ron Hubbard. So that's what we're going to be decoding. That's what we'll be deconstructing. And that's the message that we'll be continuing to deliver even in 2016.
Okay. So people, look, you get information here, right? So, y'all got the the date and time. If you miss it, just rewind the show. You know, and get in touch with Ishmael Bay, and Rod Squad Scholarship Group over there. You can find them there, or just type in Ishmael Bay, inbox them. But yeah, people, this is what 2016 is supposed to be about. The spirits of, or the legacies of a Steve Coakley and stuff need to really be captured and, used in the community. We need this information. We need this information about the things that is up on us right now, not the things in the past, but going on now. The prison industrial complex is a big problem. How they getting us in there, how they profiling us still. The sister just passed, you know, Dr. Wilson, great sister, ISIS paper, ISIS, the terrorist group. Ali Muhammad, I won't give you, I won't give you credit for that. They took it from her paper, if they took it from anywhere. So, with that said, it is what it is, people. It is an attack on us, and it is a covert attack, and we need to start dealing with certain information and reintroducing certain information to the community so they can actually sit down and study some of these patterns and phenomena that then took place amongst our community. So, Chris, you got something else you want to add on to, what we're going to talk about tonight, what you look to bring to it? As you know, Ishmael, we're going to be dealing with Pan-Africanism, Christian roots, and the counterintelligent branches. And I know that term or that title was kind of out there, but I'm going to bring it home tonight with the questions, and the information should most definitely, batten down the hatches for the storm that's coming.
Yeah, I wanted to say too, the work that Ish and Ishmael Day, the Squad, Professor Ourself, the work that they've done on Scientology is, if you even go out there and look, it's matched by nobody. It's just nobody else out there doing that type of work. White folks, black, whatever. The work that they're putting in on Scientology is very good. And I remember Savior's Day 2011, I was invited to the NOI Mosque in Norfolk, Virginia. And that was the first time I heard Farrakhan say something about L. Ron Hubbard. And, at that time, I didn't really know how to interpret it. That was the whole scene where he put him on the big screen, like, oh, put him on the screen, basically kissing his ass. I didn't really know, how to interpret that, but I'm really glad that Ish and everybody, they've been putting in the work and helping people to understand a little bit better the relationship between Nation of Islam and Church of Scientology.
Yeah, so like I said, people, I got a show with Ishmael talking about it. I might post it up a little later on my page in the groups or whatever. I know he got YouTube information out there and stuff with him talking about it. So y'all could check into that even more, because that is something that's going on in the community that's damn near covert, and it's not being talked about or dealt with. This is where, once again, people got us looking in this direction and they coming from that direction. So
right, and one of the main things about it is acceptance too. I heard Ish kind of touching on that a little bit. One of the things that they're trying to do is get you to accept just about anything. Whatever it is, you should accept it. And, Scientology is another one of those acceptance methods, where it's okay, you could be doing the wrong thing, you could be a homosexual, whatever, but hey, it's okay. You just got to accept it.
Well, Ish, you can always come back and talk Scientology again. I mean, my platform can use the information. Those over here, like I said, I'm trying to direct them your way. But if they don't make it your way and just over here, this a spot once again. You could come and speak about it in 2016. And
yes, sir, brother Carl, and I welcome and I thank you for that because your platform is 20 times bigger than Amara Squad. So I thank you so much, brother.
yeah,
But on the real, I want to let you know that the work that you do is so very, very important. What you do is you analyze or you challenge people to analyze things critically. And Brother Chris, he analyzes things critically on both sides, weighing all the options and the data. That's the best thing that you can do as an individual. You do the same thing, Brother Carl. One of the wisest things that a person can do is to be firm in their faith and their belief. If you're firm in your faith and your belief and you obtain and seek knowledge, then you won't fall prey to cults. You won't fall prey to people that's trying to take over your spirit and your mind. So if you find the faith that you're looking for, and then you couple that with a sincere seeking of knowledge and critically analyzing information, you'll be able to identify with other people who are doing the same thing. Whether they believe in your book or not, you still find like spirits and like people that will be in agreement with you 100% of the time. I always encourage people to study people like Brother Carl. Walk alongside with him. You'll learn from him. I'm learning from you the same way that you will learn something from me because you're my brother. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the thing that you do is stay firm within your faith so that you will not be falling to prey to anyone else that can come and teach you lies. So keep on doing what you're doing. And you're always going to have a comrade in someone like me because regardless of wherever I go, I have friends and soldiers in every walk of life because I walk a certain kind of way and I have a certain kind of standard of how I treat others and things that I tolerate and things that I will not tolerate. And you're a good man. So by you being a good man, I'm always going to be able to identify with you and I will always support you. So I thank you for always giving me an opportunity to come and share things with your audience. And I hope that I've always returned the favor to you to feel as if you can come and you can share your information with our audience also because you're my comrade and my brother. So I thank you for that, Brother Carl.
yeah, it's all good. I appreciate the words and stuff. You know, they you know, they nice. And you know, as everybody know, I'm Mr. Tribe. I'm trying to do my best to help others. That's all. That's as much as I do. I try, you know. And as far as that other lesson you was talking about that I learned in life, you know, stand for something to fall for anything. We know who quotes that who got that. Well, I got that quote from. That's Malcolm. So yeah, you know, individuals that stand for something, whether if it's right or wrong, at least if they get knocked on it, they know that they didn't win as far as they can go in that foundation, and now it's time to move on to something else because that wasn't firm enough. But you got to stand on something at first. We got to organize somewhere too. Organization is key, and I appreciate the way the Ra Squad got a lot of these, you know, tag along groups trying to organize and get, you know, research teams and things of that nature because we need them. So you know, Chris is a product of that. Ishmael is a founding member of that. So, you know, it is what it is. We're a part of this community, and we got to do what we got to do to wake up the people if we here for the people. If we here for our own private interests, then at a show. As he stated earlier, Ishmael, our work will speak for itself, you know. And y'all know I'm a firm believer of that other slogan, if I take care of my character, my reputation will take care of itself. So I suggest all of y'all take care of y'all character so people know you. When they hear your name, it's either going to rain good or bad in the community. So with that said, hey, I appreciate everybody calling in and participating. Sisters, y'all want to say something?
Y'all got peace, brother. Nope, I'm just going to comment on the brother. I told you so. Where that one little you lamb make that whole big old sky over them two black guys. It's sitting watching. They ain't got nothing to do with how many people don't you know one little you lamb is more than all the souls on the earth? Because the words say 100 sheep and one stray where you better leave that 99 and go after that one. So if the Lord say that, then that's top of the line. That brother was on point. I'm going to be catching up with that brother Stewart so I can see what he's talking about. And on that note, brother, peace.
All right, everybody. So on that note, I appreciate y'all brothers calling in. Tune in tonight's show, 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Pacific, and I'm not Pacific, but Eastern, and I think it's 5 o'clock Pacific. So that's the time frames: 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock. That's Eastern, Central, and Pacific. So with that said, the 312-985-7856 is the number to call in and listen. And to the Q&A, it's open. So with that said, I'm gonna say peace. I'm through broadcasting, but anybody on Skype can stay there. Peace.